Nike just dropped $3 billion on Alexandra Eala's table. $3 billion. The largest female athlete contract in human history. And Roger Federer, the untouchable legend, collapsed on live television, sobbing uncontrollably while the world watched in absolute shock. What happened wasn't just a sponsorship announcement. It became the moment tennis royalty crumbled under the weight of realizing greatness had shifted. One signature, one Filipino sensation, one contract that obliterated every salary record, shattered gender pay gaps forever, and left the sport's greatest champion weeping on camera, not from joy, but from something far more devastating. This isn't celebration, this is revolution, witnessed through tears. 18 months before Nike executives authorized history's most staggering athlete investment, Alexandra Eala ranked 139th globally. Analysts dismissed her trajectory. Commentators predicted moderate success at best, perhaps cracking the top 70 if injuries spared her. Then Miami happened. March 2025. Eiala stormed through qualifying rounds like a hurricane devouring coastlines. She dismantled Clara Towson, demolished Madison Keys on American soil, destroyed Jelena Ostapenko in front of stunned crowds. Then came the earthquake, defeating Iga Swiatek, the reigning champion, in straight sets while Filipino fans transformed Hard Rock Stadium into deafening chaos that violated every tennis etiquette rule ever written. Commentators scrambled for explanations. Sports analysts rewrote predictions mid-tournament. Television ratings exploded 340% whenever Eiala stepped onto courts. Arenas designed for 12,000 spectators squeezed in 17,000 bodies desperate to witness something nobody could adequately explain. A 20-year-old Filipino demolishing champions with ferocious groundstrokes and unshakable composure that belonged to veterans, not rookies. But numbers told incomplete stories. What corporate executives noticed transcended rankings entirely. Eiala's magnetic pull created economic earthquakes wherever she competed. Hotels surrounding tournament venues sold out within hours of her advancing rounds. Restaurants near stadiums reported revenue increases exceeding 200%. Local economies experienced measurable boosts simply from her presence. Nike's market research division monitored something unprecedented. Eiala possessed crossover appeal that defied demographic limitations. Filipino communities worldwide mobilized around her matches. Asian markets demonstrated purchasing behaviors typically reserved for male superstars. European audiences embraced her underdog narrative. American crowds adopted her as honorary hometown hero, despite representing the Philippines. She wasn't merely talented, she was a movement wrapped in human form, carrying aspirations of entire demographics on her shoulders while making dominance look effortless. Her rankings skyrocketed past 29 by March 2026. Prize earnings approached $1.7 million. Endorsement offers flooded management inboxes from companies desperate to attach themselves to her meteoric rise. But those figures, impressive by conventional standards, would soon look microscopic compared to what Nike quietly assembled in classified negotiations that began immediately after her Miami semifinal appearance. The proposal they constructed wasn't merely a sponsorship agreement, it was a statement about Nike's vision for women's athletics, Asian market dominance, and redefining what female athletes deserved financially. $3 billion upfront, annual performance bonuses potentially adding another $4 billion across contract duration, equity stakes in Nike subsidiary ventures, lifetime royalties on signature product lines bearing her name. Total potential package value, $7.2 billion over 15 years, obliterating every female athlete contract ever negotiated by margins so astronomical they seemed fictional. What happened next would break Roger Federer completely, and nobody saw it coming. February 28, 2026, Nike World Headquarters, Portland, Oregon. A press conference announced with 36 hours notice, enough time for global media mobilization but insufficient for speculation accuracy. Cameras from 63 countries lined the venue. Journalists whispered predictions ranging from new Air Jordan collaborations to sustainability initiatives. Nobody guessed correctly until Eiala walked through doors wearing custom Nike prototype gear nobody had seen before. Sleek, futuristic, emblazoned with Philippine flag colorways that immediately sparked frenzy on social media platforms worldwide. Nike CEO Elliott Hill approached the microphone first. His opening statement detonated like tactical nuclear weapons in the sports business universe. Today, Nike makes the largest investment in a female athlete in corporate history. Alexandra Eiala has signed a 15-year partnership valued at $3 billion guaranteed, with performance incentives potentially reaching $7.2 billion total. She is now the highest-paid athlete, male or female, in tennis history. The room erupted. Cameras flashed like strobe light apocalypse. Journalists shouted questions in 12 languages simultaneously, while social media platforms crashed under traffic surges as news propagated globally within seconds. Eiala sat beside Hill, visibly overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face while trying to maintain composure. Her voice trembled addressing microphones. I still can't believe this is happening. 6 months ago, I was fighting to stay ranked inside the 100. Today, Nike believes in me enough to make this investment. But this isn't just about money. It's about proving women's tennis deserves equal financial respect, that Asian athletes belong at the absolute top, and that the Philippines produces champions worthy of global recognition. Her hands shook holding the contract replica displayed for photographers. The symbolism hit like freight trains. A Filipino woman, barely 20 years old, now commanded compensation dwarfing what tennis legends accumulated across entire Hall of Fame careers. Financial analysts immediately began contextualization attempts. Serena Williams' career prize money? Approximately $95 million. Eiala's guaranteed Nike contract? 31 times larger, before accounting for prize winnings, appearance fees, or other endorsement deals already secured.
Roger Federer's lifetime Nike partnership? Estimated $300 million total. Eiala's new agreement? Potentially 24 times greater in value. The mathematics felt incomprehensible. Sports economists questioned how Nike justified numbers this extreme for an athlete still climbing rankings, not defending Grand Slam titles. Marketing professors debated whether any athlete, regardless of performance, could generate returns justifying billion-dollar investments. But Nike's research told different stories. Their projections indicated Eiala's crossover appeal, combined with explosive growth in Asian markets and unprecedented female athlete following, positioned her to generate revenue streams no previous tennis player had accessed. Her Instagram engagement metrics surpassed LeBron James. Her merchandise moved faster than Cristiano Ronaldo gear in peak seasons. Her presence in tournaments created measurable economic impacts exceeding most male athletes combined. Nike wasn't gambling on potential. They were capitalizing on reality already manifesting. The press conference continued for 90 minutes. Questions about contract specifics, inquiries regarding signature shoe lines, speculation about documentary series Nike planned producing, discussion of equity stakes giving Eiala ownership percentages in ventures bearing her brand. But amid celebration, one AdSense screamed louder than any speech. Roger Federer, Nike's longtime ambassador, conspicuously missing despite being in Portland for unrelated business meetings. Journalists noted his absence, social media buzzed with speculation. Within hours, leaked photos emerged showing Federer exiting Nike headquarters through side entrances, face obscured by sunglasses despite overcast weather, clearly avoiding media presence. Something had broken inside tennis royalty. The question wasn't whether Federer supported Eiala's historic deal. It was why the announcement apparently devastated him enough to flee rather than celebrate. The truth emerged 48 hours later, and it destroyed everything we thought we understood. March 2nd, 2026, ESPN Studios, New York City. Roger Federer had agreed to a previously scheduled interview with Patrick McEnroe, discussing the upcoming Indian Wells tournament and his reflections on the sport's evolution. Nobody anticipated what unfolded on live television, while 37 million viewers watched worldwide. McEnroe began with softballs, questions about favorite Indian Wells memories, predictions for tournament favorites, thoughts on rising talents. Federer answered professionally, smile fixed, demeanor controlled. Then McEnroe shifted topics. Roger, I have to ask, Alex Eala's Nike contract, $3 billion. As someone who's been Nike's face in tennis for decades, what's your reaction? Federer's composure fractured instantly. His jaw clenched, eyes glistened. The mask he'd maintained for 2 days disintegrated on camera while millions watched helplessly. He stopped, collected himself, failed. I'm sorry, Patrick, Tears began flowing, not polite dampness, full breakdown crying that shook his shoulders. He covered his face with hands that had held 20 Grand Slam trophies but couldn't hide this vulnerability. The camera held steady, capturing every second of tennis royalty collapsing emotionally on international television. McEnroe froze, uncertain whether to comfort Federer or cut to commercial. Producers backstage panicked. Social media exploded instantaneously. Hashtag Federer crying trended #1 globally within 90 seconds. When Federer finally spoke, his voice cracked with raw emotion nobody had witnessed before. It's not about the money, Patrick. People will think I'm jealous, bitter about a younger athlete getting paid more. That's not it. He paused, gathering thoughts through tears. What breaks me is realizing I spent 25 years being told I was the pinnacle, the ceiling, the absolute maximum tennis could offer commercially. And now I understand. They lied to me, to all of us. McEnroe leaned forward, uncertain where this confession was heading. Federer continued, words tumbling out like dam breaking. I signed my first Nike contract for $10 million annually. I thought it was astronomical, record-breaking. They called it unprecedented, and I believed them. I believed that represented peak value for tennis excellence. But Alexandra? She's 20 years old, Patrick. 20. She hasn't won Grand Slams yet. She's ranked 29th, and Nike paid her 30 times what they paid me in my absolute prime. The implications landed like explosions across sports media. So, either Federer's voice gained steel through tears, either Alexandra is 3,000% more valuable than I ever was, which statistically seems impossible, or Nike always could have paid us more, paid women more, paid everyone more. They just chose not to, and we never knew to demand better because they convinced us we'd already reached the ceiling. He wiped tears, staring directly into cameras. I'm not crying because Alexandra got rich. I'm crying because I finally understand how much money Nike made off my name while telling me $300 million over a lifetime was generosity. And I'm ashamed that it took them paying a woman $3 billion for me to realize they were exploiting all of us with manufactured salary ceilings we accepted as gospel truth. Silence engulfed the studio. No commercial break, no interviewer interruption, just Federer, broken, speaking truths that would reverberate through sports business for generations. Congratulations, Alexandra. You did what none of us had courage to do. You made them show their actual hand, and now we all see what they were really hiding. The interview ended. Federer walked off set. Sports television had just witnessed something unprecedented, a legend publicly processing his own obsolescence while simultaneously celebrating the revolution making him irrelevant. Within 1 hour, hashtag Federer was right trended alongside hashtag Federer is jealous, Twitter bifurcating into tribal warfare, so vicious it resembled political movements rather than sports discussion. Male athletes across sports immediately rallied behind Federer's revelation. LeBron James tweeted, "This is bigger than tennis. Every athlete needs to watch this interview 3 times." Cristiano Ronaldo posted simply, "Truth hurts sponsors more than athletes." Female athletes responded with complexity reflecting their unique position. Serena Williams wrote, "Roger's pain is valid, but don't forget, women have been underpaid by magnitudes larger than any male athlete for decades. Welcome to our reality." Naomi Osaka added, "Companies don't have ceilings, only the limits we accept." Sports business journalists scrambled publishing emergency analyses. Forbes ran headlines, "Did Nike just expose decades of artificial salary suppression?" The Athletic published investigations revealing Nike's tennis division profits had exceeded $4 billion annually for 15 years, suggesting they possessed resources for mega deals, but strategically maintained lower athlete compensation to maximize margins. Nike's public relations team issued statements emphasizing their commitment to equitable compensation, while carefully avoiding specifics about historical contracts. Their evasiveness only intensified speculation they'd been systematically underpaying athletes while profits soared. But the fiercest debates erupted around Federer himself, specifically whether his tears represented genuine awakening or entitled resentment disguised as social consciousness. Critics savaged him mercilessly. One viral thread dissected his privilege. Federer made $300 million, and now he's crying about exploitation? Meanwhile, WNBA players make $120,000 annually and fight for scraps. His revelation is everyone else's daily reality. Others question timing. Convenient how Roger discovers wage exploitation only after a woman gets paid more than him. Where was this energy when male athletes were getting deals 50 times larger than females? Sports columnists wrote scathing op-eds accusing Federer of weaponizing social justice language to mask personal jealousy. Talk radio stations debated whether his interview represented genuine contrition or manipulative victimhood from someone who'd benefited immensely from the systems he suddenly criticized. Conversely, defenders argued Federer's transparency deserved respect, that admitting uncomfortable truths about complicity in exploitive systems required courage, especially for someone whose legacy depended on maintaining corporate relationships. Financial experts pointed out mathematical realities. Even if Nike had underpaid Federer relative to true value, $300 million still represented generational wealth beyond most humans' comprehension. His pain felt authentic, but occurred from altitude most people would never experience, making empathy complicated. Meanwhile, Alexandra Eala herself remained strategically silent. No social media posts, no interviews. Management released brief statements thanking Nike and expressing excitement about partnership, but refusing to engage with Federer controversy swirling around her contract. Some interpreted her silence as calculated wisdom. Why risk diminishing her historic moment by wading into debates about male athlete compensation? Others viewed it as disappointing. Her platform could amplify discussions about systemic wage inequality, yet she chose neutrality. Behind closed doors, insiders reported Eala felt trapped between impossible narratives. If she defended Federer, critics would accuse her.
March 5, 2026. An anonymous source leaked internal Nike correspondence to Sports Illustrated. The emails dated back 14 months, long before Eiala's Miami breakthrough, revealing negotiations that obliterated every assumption about her contract's origins. The leaked documents exposed truth far more complex than public narratives suggested. Email 1, July 2024. Nike's Asia-Pacific Marketing Director to Executive Committee. Eiala presents unprecedented market penetration opportunity. Filipino diaspora represents 115 million potential consumers we've historically undervalued. Her appeal transcends tennis. She's cultural phenomenon. Recommend aggressive pursuit before competitors recognize value. Translation: Nike identified Eiala's commercial potential before she proved anything on professional courts. They weren't gambling on future performance, they were capitalizing on existing fan base Nike had ignored for decades. Email 2, November 2024. Nike Legal Team to Finance Division.
Federer contract expires 2027. Market research indicates his commercial value declining 18% annually among target demographics, 18 to 35. Recommend strategic pivot toward younger, more diverse ambassadors, matching shifting consumer bases. The implications were devastating. Nike wasn't merely offering Eiala historic money, they were systematically phasing out Federer, regardless of his feelings about it. His emotional interview wasn't reacting to Eiala's deal specifically, he was processing his own obsolescence that Nike had been planning for years. Email 3, January 2025. Nike CEO to marketing team. Eiala contract represents complete paradigm shift. We're not signing an athlete, we're acquiring access to demographics we've failed capturing for 20 years. Authorization granted for unprecedented compensation if necessary. This is Asia-Pacific expansion strategy disguised as athlete sponsorship. This email shattered the celebratory framing entirely. Nike's historic investment wasn't progressive gesture toward gender equity, it was calculated business expansion, using Eiala as vehicle for accessing markets they'd consistently underserved, while prioritizing European and American athletes. Sports journalists immediately reframed narratives. The contract wasn't validation of Eiala's tennis excellence. It was Nike admitting they'd spent decades ignoring Filipino and broader Asian consumers, despite their massive market potential and purchasing power. Eiala herself became uncomfortable symbol of corporate cynicism. Her legitimate talent and achievements were being retroactively reinterpreted as secondary to her demographic background, as if Nike valued her ethnicity over her excellence. Filipino communities experienced whiplash. Initial pride in Eiala's deal soured into suspicion that Nike was exploiting her cultural identity for profit maximization, rather than genuinely respecting her athletic merit. Had she earned this contract through skill, or was she simply the convenient face for Nike's belated Asian market strategy? Meanwhile, Federer's tears took on new meaning. Perhaps he wasn't mourning wage exploitation broadly. Maybe he was specifically processing that his whiteness and European heritage no longer commanded premium value in shifting global markets. His breakdown on television suddenly looked less like social awakening and more like privileged man confronting diminished relevance as corporations prioritized diverse ambassadors for commercial reasons, not moral ones. The leaked emails exposed uncomfortable truth pervading sports business. Corporations don't pursue equity, they pursue profits. Nike didn't pay Eiala billions of dollars because women deserve equal compensation. They did it because market research indicated Asian consumers would generate returns justifying the investment. The progressive optics were convenient byproduct, not primary motivation. This revelation poisoned everything. Eiala's achievement felt tainted by corporate manipulation. Federer's emotions seemed hollow now that leaked communications revealed Nike had planned his phase-out independent of any social justice considerations. Even celebrations of gender pay gap progress rang false, once exposed as accidental consequence of demographic targeting rather than intentional equity advancement. The sports world confronted disorienting reality. Progress happened, but for entirely wrong reasons. Milestones were reached, but motivations were purely transactional. Historic deals were signed, but nobody involved, athlete, corporation, or public, could claim moral high ground. Cynicism replaced celebration, suspicion replaced pride, and everyone lost their narratives simultaneously. But then, Alex Eala finally spoke, and her words changed absolutely everything. March 8, 2026, Alexandra Eiala posted a 12-minute video on Instagram. No professional production, no script visible, just her sitting in her Manila home wearing a simple Philippine national team shirt, speaking directly into a smartphone camera. Her opening sentence silenced the internet instantly. I knew exactly what Nike was doing, and I took their money anyway. The honesty was jarring. No corporate speak, no carefully crafted public relations messaging, just brutal transparency from someone who'd spent 2 weeks watching everyone else define her story, while she remained silent. Everyone wants to debate whether I deserved this contract, whether Nike gave it to me for athletic merit or demographic targeting, whether Roger Federer's tears were valid or privileged whining, whether this represents progress or exploitation. So let me clarify. All of it is true, simultaneously. She leaned forward, establishing direct eye contact through camera lens. Nike approached me because market research indicated I could deliver Asian consumer engagement they'd historically failed capturing. Yes, that's factual. They weren't motivated by gender equity principles, they were motivated by revenue projections. Also factual. Roger Federer is absolutely correct that Nike always possessed resources for larger athlete contracts, but artificially maintained lower ceilings to protect margins. Completely accurate. Her bluntness was startling in its refusal to sugarcoat corporate realities. But here's what everyone misses while debating motives. I don't care why Nike paid me $3 billion. I care that they did. Because now every agent negotiating female athlete contracts have proof that corporations possess resources they've been hiding behind artificial scarcity claims. Now every Asian athlete can point to my deal as evidence their markets command premium value. Now every young Filipino watching knows that excellence combined with cultural identity isn't a limitation, it's leverage. Eiala's expression hardened with determination. Roger cried on television processing his obsolescence. That's his right. He earned 20 Grand Slams and $300 million while being told he reached the ceiling. Discovering that ceiling was artificially manufactured must hurt profoundly. I empathize, but I refuse to feel guilty for Nike finally paying someone, anyone, what they're actually worth, instead of what they can get away with paying them. She paused, allowing her point to land. People want me to reject this contract on principle because Nike's motivations weren't pure enough. They want me to martyr myself, proving I prioritize ideological purity over financial security. And to those people, I say this: you don't get to demand poverty as proof of my integrity. You don't get to require me to sacrifice generational wealth to validate your comfort with how change happens. Her voice carried steel nobody had heard before in her cheerful post-match interviews. Progress is ugly. It's transactional. It happens because corporations chase profits and accidentally create opportunities while pursuing self-interest. That doesn't make it fake progress. It makes it the only kind of progress that actually occurs in capitalist systems. And I'm taking full advantage while it's available, rather than waiting for morally pure motivations that will never arrive. Eiala's final words arrived softly, but hit like hammer blows. I'm Alexandra Eiala. I'm 20 years old. I'm Filipino. I'm worth $3 billion to Nike because mathematics and market research determined I could generate returns justifying the investment. Whether that makes you uncomfortable doesn't change the deposit in my account. Whether Roger Federer cries about it doesn't reduce my bank balance. And whether people debate my worthiness doesn't impact the fact that I signed the contract and secured my family's future for generations. She smiled, small, knowing, unapologetic. You're welcome to keep debating motivations and purity and who deserves what. Meanwhile, I'll be playing tennis and cashing checks. One doesn't require the other. The video